Captain Dongwu stared at the star map floating before him. The bridge of the UES Silent Running was dark except for the soft blue glow of the displays. His crew worked quietly at their stations just like they had trained for years. No loud voices, no bright lights, nothing that would give them away. Distance to the alien ship? He asked his navigator. 200,000 kilometers, sir, replied Lieutenant Minseo. Her voice was barely above a whisper. They still don't see us, Dongwu smiled. The alien vessel was huge compared to his ship. It looked like a floating crystal palace, all sharp edges and glowing surfaces. Beautiful, but easy to spot from across the solar system. The aliens who built it clearly wanted everyone to see them coming. Humans did things differently. The Silent Running was painted black as space itself. Its hull bent light around it like water flowing around a rock. Heat from the engines was captured and stored instead of being released into space. Even their radio signals were kept inside special shields. To any alien sensors, they were just another piece of empty space. Sir, we're picking up their communications again, said Communications Officer Hyunwoo. He pressed his headphones closer to his ears. They're talking about us. About Earth. What are they saying? Hyunwoo's face showed surprise and anger. They're laughing, sir. They call us the chemical rocket children. They think we're still playing with fireworks. Down on Earth, Admiral Hyun-soo walked through the underground command center hidden beneath the mountains of Korea. The facility was enormous, carved from solid rock over decades of secret construction. Thousands of people worked here, but the world above had no idea they existed. Status report, he said to his aide, Colonel Yoonji. All stealth ships are in position, sir. We have eyes on 12 alien vessels throughout the solar system. They think they're watching us, but we're watching them right back. Admiral Hyun-soo nodded. The aliens had been coming to Earth's solar system for 30 years. They arrived in their bright ships, scanned everything with their powerful sensors, and made notes in their databases. They watched humans struggle to reach Mars with chemical rockets. They saw the small space stations and the slow cargo ships moving between planets. What they didn't see were the real ships. The real ships were built in hidden facilities on the dark side of the moon. They were constructed in asteroid mines that looked abandoned from the outside. They were assembled in the depths of Jupiter's radiation belt, where alien sensors couldn't penetrate. Earth had learned the most important lesson in its bloody history. Never show your true strength until you're ready to use it. Dr. So-young studied the latest alien transmission intercepts in her laboratory. As Earth's top expert on alien languages and behavior, she had been listening to galactic radio traffic for 15 years. What she heard made her both worried and angry. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Council. Hundreds of different species from across the galaxy, all working together. They had rules about how new civilizations should behave. When a species learned to travel between stars, they were supposed to announce themselves with grand displays. Big ships, powerful weapons, demands for territory or trade, but the aliens talking about humans sounded bored. The Sol system primitives are progressing slower than expected, one transmission said. Their largest vessel is barely 300 meters long. Their weapons are simple chemical explosives. They may not achieve true space travel for another 200 years. Another voice from a different species added, Should we make contact? Offer to help them advance faster? No need, came the reply. They're harmless. Let them play with their little rockets. We have more important matters to deal with, So-young wanted to scream. If only they knew what humans had really built in the shadows. She walked to her secure terminal and opened the classified files. Photos of the real human fleet filled her screen. Ships that were kilometers long instead of meters. Weapons that could crack planets instead of just making loud explosions. Engines that could fold space itself instead of just pushing through it slowly, the UES Thunder. Of War alone could probably destroy half the alien ships currently watching Earth, and it was just one of 200 ships like it. But Earth's leaders had decided to wait. Let the aliens think humans were weak. Let them make their reports about primitive chemical rockets and harmless exploration missions. Meanwhile, humans would keep building, keep learning, keep preparing for the day when hiding was no longer possible. That day was coming sooner than anyone expected. In the depths of space, Captain Dongwu received a priority message on his ship's most secure channel. The message was short, but it made his blood run cold. All stealth vessels return to base immediately. Long-range sensors have detected massive fleet movements in the outer galaxy. Unknown aggressive species attacking Council worlds. Estimated time to Sol system, 18 months. Prepare for possible end of concealment protocols. Dongwu stared at the message for a long moment. After 30 years of hiding, 30 years of being dismissed as harmless primitives, humanity might finally have to show the galaxy what they had really been doing all this time. He thought about the aliens who had been watching Earth with such casual dismissal. They had no idea that the chemical rocket children had been listening to every word they said, learning their weaknesses, studying their technology, building weapons specifically designed to destroy their supposedly superior ships. The galaxy expected humanity's silence. They expected humans to stay quiet and harmless in their little corner of space, playing with primitive technology while the real powers made the important decisions. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. All hands, prepare for departure, Dongwu announced to his crew. Silent running protocols remain in effect. We're going home. The ship turned toward Earth, invisible against the stars. Behind them, the alien crystal ship continued its lazy patrol, its crew still laughing about the harmless humans and their pathetic little rockets. If they had known what was really coming, they would not have been laughing. 3 years had passed since the first warnings reached Earth. The galaxy was burning, and the aliens who had once laughed at human chemical rockets were now screaming for help. Captain Minho stood in the observation deck of Station Echo, humanity's most advanced listening post hidden in the Centauri system. The station looked like a dead asteroid from the outside, but inside it contained the most powerful sensor arrays humans had ever built. Every message, every distress call, every tactical report in the galaxy passed through this room. And what Minho heard made him sick. Play the latest. Transmission from the Nexari homeworlds, he ordered his communications officer. The speaker crackled to life with the sound of crystal beings screaming. The beautiful musical language of the Nexari had turned into desperate cries for help. Council Command, this is Nexari Fleet Admiral Ziltha. The Cathavar have broken through our energy shields. Our crystal ships are being shattered like glass. We need immediate reinforcement or our entire civilization will be. The transmission cut off in static. That's the 15th world this month, said Lieutenant Ji-un, the station's tactical analyst. The Cathavar are moving faster than anyone expected. Minho studied the battle reports flowing across his screens. The Cathavar were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. They came from somewhere beyond the outer rim, where no council ships had ever explored. Their technology was different, brutal and terrifyingly effective. Where council species used energy weapons that could be blocked by shields, the Cathavar used simple kinetic impactors, massive chunks of metal fired at incredible speeds. Council ships were designed to look impressive and show off their civilization's achievements. Cathavar ships looked like weapons, nothing more, and they were winning. On Earth, Defense Minister Yunji walked quickly through the corridors of the Shadow Council headquarters. The facility had grown enormously since the first alien contacts 30 years ago. What started as a small group of military planners had become Earth's true government, operating in complete secrecy while the public leaders played their roles above ground. Status of the galactic situation? She asked as she entered the main briefing room. General Taemin looked up from his displays. His face was grim. It's bad. The Velkoth hive mind lost their entire core fleet yesterday. The insect species that everyone said was impossible to defeat lasted exactly 4 hours against Cathavar acid weapons. How many council worlds have fallen? 47 confirmed destroyed. 12 more under siege. The Cathavar aren't just conquering these places. They're sterilizing them. Every living thing gone. Yunji sat down heavily. She had spent her career preparing for the day when humanity would have to reveal itself to the galaxy. She had imagined first contact would be on human terms, when Earth was ready and strong enough to negotiate as equals. Instead, they might be walking into the middle of the galaxy's final war. What do we know about Cathavar technology? She asked. Dr. Wu Jin, Earth's chief alien technology analyst, activated the holographic display. The image of a Cathavar warship appeared. A brutal, angular thing covered in weapon ports and armor plating. They're not more advanced than the council species, he said. In many ways, they're simpler. But they're designed for one purpose, destroying other ships and killing other species. While the council was building beautiful art pieces that happened to fly through space, the Cathavar were building pure weapons of war. Sounds familiar, muttered General Taemin. It did sound familiar. Earth had learned the same lesson throughout its history. Pretty uniforms and parade formations looked impressive, but wars were won by soldiers with practical weapons and tactics, designed for killing the enemy efficiently. The question was whether humanity's weapons were efficient enough. Admiral Hyun-soo entered the room, carrying a classified data tablet. "I have the latest intelligence from our deep space monitoring stations. The news is worse than we thought." He activated the main display, showing a galactic map with red zones marking HFY conquests. They're not just random raiders. This is a planned extermination campaign. They're systematically destroying every species they encounter, working their way through the galaxy in a pattern. "What pattern?" Tunji asked. "They're moving toward Sol." The room fell silent. Everyone had known this day would come eventually, but seeing it displayed on the map made it real. The red zones of destruction formed a rough spiral with Earth directly in its path. "How long do we have?" Hyunji asked. "If they maintain their current speed, 18 months, maybe less if they decide to skip some of the outer worlds." Dr. So Young spoke for the first time since entering the room. "I've been analyzing their communications. The HFY language is simple, but their psychology is clear. They believe any species advanced enough for space travel is a threat that must be eliminated. They won't negotiate. They won't accept surrender. They will come for Earth and they will try to kill every human being alive." Admiral Hyun-soo set down his tablet. "Then it's time to stop hiding." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. For 30 years, humanity had worked in secret, building their true fleet while letting the galaxy think they were harmless primitives. The plan had always been to reveal their strength when the time was right, when Earth could negotiate from a position of power. Now they might have to reveal everything just to survive. "What are our current fleet numbers?" Yoonji asked. 200 capital ships fully operational," Admiral Hyun-soo replied. 1,500 smaller vessels, all equipped with our latest stealth technology and quantum fold drives. Every ship designed specifically for void combat. "How do they compare to council fleets?" General Taman smiled grimly. "A single one of our destroyers could probably take on a dozen council ships. Their vessels are built for show and diplomacy. Ours are built for war. And against the HFY?" The smile faded. "Unknown. But we're about to find out." Outside the meeting room, in the depths of Earth's hidden military facilities, thousands of humans worked around the clock preparing for a war most of them didn't even know was coming. Ship crews trained on simulators. Weapons technicians loaded quantum torpedoes. Engineers ran final checks on stealth systems that had never been tested in real combat. Humanity had spent 30 years preparing for this moment. They had listened to the galaxy's communications, studied alien technology, and built weapons specifically designed to destroy the ships they might have to face. But the HFY were different. They weren't the proud, civilized species the Council had become. They were killers, pure and simple, and they were coming. The galaxy that had once dismissed humanity as harmless was about to learn what humans could do when their survival was threatened. The species that had perfected the art of war on a single planet was about to take their knowledge to the stars. The Quiet Watchers were preparing to become the loudest thunder the galaxy had ever heard. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin at Talon Prime, and nobody knew it yet. Commander Ji-woo stood on the bridge of the UES Thunder's Edge, watching the massive space battle unfold on her screens. The last Council fleet was fighting desperately against the HFY invasion force, and they were losing badly. "Distance to the battle zone?" she asked her navigator. 50,000 kilometers and closing, ma'am." "Still cloaked?" Ji-woo nodded. Around her ship, 199 other human vessels moved through space like ghosts. The largest fleet humanity had ever assembled, and not one alien sensor could detect them. On the view screen, another Council ship exploded in a ball of fire. The beautiful crystal vessels of the Nexari were being smashed to pieces by simple metal projectiles moving at incredible speeds. The bioships of the Velkoth hive mind dissolved as HFY acid weapons ate through their living hulls. It was a slaughter. "Sir, we're receiving transmissions from the Council fleet," reported Communications Officer Seung-min. "They're calling for anyone at all to help them." The desperation in the alien voices was heartbreaking. These were the same species that had spent decades dismissing humanity as primitive children, playing with chemical rockets. Now they were begging for help from anyone who would listen. Too bad for them that the only ones listening were the humans they had ignored for so long. Admiral Jae Sung's Voice crackled through the fleet communications channel. All ships, this is Fleet Command. Prepare for combat to cloak on my signal. Today we show the galaxy what Earth has been building in the shadows. Jiwoo felt her heart racing. 30 years of preparation were about to be put to the test. Every simulation, every training exercise, every careful plan. It all came down to the next few minutes. The HFY ships were massive, ugly things covered in weapons and armor. They moved through space like giant metal beasts, smashing everything in their path. Their tactics were simple but effective. Get close and destroy everything with overwhelming firepower. It had worked against every species they had encountered so far. Ma'am, Council sensors are detecting massive energy readings throughout the system, reported the sensor officer. But they can't see any ships, Jiwoo smiled. Human stealth technology was decades ahead of anything the galaxy had seen. While alien species built their ships to be seen and admired, humans built theirs to be invisible until the moment they struck. All weapon systems online? She asked. Quantum torpedoes loaded and ready. Gravitational cannons charged. Point defense systems active. Excellent. Jiwoo opened a channel to her crew. Listen up, people. We've trained for this moment our entire careers. The aliens out there think they know what space combat looks like. They're about to learn they were wrong. On the main tactical display, the HFY fleet was closing in on the last Council stronghold. Talon Prime was a massive space station, home to millions of beings from dozens of species. If it fell, organized resistance to the HFY would end forever. The alien defenders were down to their last dozen ships, ancient vessels with proud names and glorious histories, now facing an enemy they couldn't defeat. Their energy weapons splashed harmlessly off HFY armor. Their shields couldn't stop kinetic impactors moving at a significant fraction of light speed. Admiral Jae Sung to all ships, came the voice over the fleet channel. Decloak in 3, 2, 1, mark. The universe changed in an instant. 200 human warships appeared throughout the Talon system as if they had materialized from nothing. Ships longer than HFY dreadnoughts, sleek and deadly as hunting sharks. Their hulls were dark as space itself, broken only by the soft glow of their weapons charging. The reaction from both sides was immediate and dramatic. Council forces stopped firing, their crews staring in shock at the impossible sight. Where had these ships come from? Their sensors had detected energy readings, but no vessels. Now there was an entire fleet larger than anything in the galaxy's records. The HFY response was more direct. They opened fire on the nearest human ships with everything they had. It was a mistake. Captain Subin commanded the destroyer UES Silent Storm, positioned directly in the path of a HFY assault group. Her ship was a quarter the size of the enemy dreadnoughts bearing down on her, but she wasn't worried. Target the lead ship, she ordered her weapons officer. Gravitational cannon maximum power. Locked on, Captain. Fire. The gravitational cannon was humanity's answer to alien shield technology. Instead of trying to punch through energy barriers or thick armor, it created a localized gravity field that crushed targets from the inside out. The HFY dreadnought simply folded in on itself and disappeared. Next target, Subin said calmly. Around the system, human ships engaged the HFY fleet with weapons and tactics the aliens had never encountered. Where the enemy expected energy beams and missile exchanges, they found quantum torpedoes that ignored their armor and gravitational weapons that treated their ships like tin cans. But the biggest shock was how the human ships moved. The HFY were used to fighting enemies that flew in straight lines and fought like gentlemen. Their own ships were built like flying fortresses, powerful but slow and predictable. Human ships danced. Lieutenant Wu Jin piloted his fighter through the enemy formation like it was an aerial dogfight over Earth's oceans. He rolled, dove, and spiraled around HFY fire while his wingmen struck from unexpected angles. The aliens couldn't track targets that moved in 3 dimensions with such fluid grace. These humans fly like they were born in space, muttered a surviving Nexari captain, watching the battle in amazement. They weren't born in space, but they were born on a planet where the sky belonged to whoever could master it first. Humanity had been fighting aerial battles for over a century, and those lessons translated perfectly to void combat. The HFY found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to follow the rules they had learned. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating effect, and vanished back into stealth before return fire could be targeted. Admiral Jae-sung watched the battle from his flagship, the UES Final Thunder. The massive vessel was the pride of Earth's hidden fleet, carrying enough firepower to level a small moon. But he didn't need to use it yet. His smaller ships were handling the enemy with disturbing efficiency. "Sir, Kethvar fleet is attempting to retreat," reported his tactical officer. "Negative," Jae-sung replied. "Let none of them escape. If they return to their territory, they'll report our capabilities. End this here." The human fleet moved to block every escape route. What had started as a battle became a carefully orchestrated extermination. The Kethvar, who had terrorized the galaxy with their brutal efficiency, found themselves trapped by an enemy they had never imagined could exist. The last Kethvar ship exploded in silence, 47 minutes after the first human vessel decloaked. In the aftermath, as burning debris drifted through space, the surviving Council forces finally managed to overcome their shock enough to send a transmission. "Unknown vessels, this is Admiral Zieltha of the Galactic Council. Please identify yourselves." Admiral Jae-sung opened a channel that broadcast throughout the system. When he spoke, his words would be remembered for 1,000 years. "This is Admiral Jae-sung of the United Earth Fleet. We are humanity, and we claim this system under the protection of Sol. Any being seeking sanctuary is welcome. Any hostile force will be eliminated." The silence that followed was deafening. The galaxy had just learned that the primitive species they had dismissed for decades possessed the most powerful military force in known space. The chemical rocket children had revealed themselves to be apex predators who had been hunting in the shadows all along. The thunder of human warships echoed through the void, and the universe would never be the same. The galaxy was in chaos, but it was the good kind of chaos for once. Lieutenant Wu Jin pressed his back against the cold metal wall of the Kethvar command ship, listening to the heavy footsteps of enemy soldiers moving through the corridor ahead. His team of 12 human Marines crouched behind him in the darkness, their weapons ready. "Contact in 30 seconds, he whispered into his comm unit. The Kethvar had never faced boarding actions before. Their ships were designed to destroy enemies from a distance, not fight them in the narrow corridors of their own vessels. But humans had been fighting in tight spaces for centuries, and they brought those lessons with them to the stars. "Flash and clear," Wu Jin ordered. The Marines threw stun grenades around the corner and charged. The Kethvar soldiers were huge, heavily armored creatures with natural weapons that could tear through metal. But they were built for open battlefield combat, not the brutal close-quarters fighting that humans had perfected in Earth cities and underground tunnels. Within minutes, the enemy soldiers were down and the human team was moving toward the ship's command center. This was happening on dozens of Kethvar vessels throughout the galaxy. The alien empire that had seemed unstoppable just months ago was falling apart as human forces dismantled. Their fleet piece by piece, Captain Seung-ho studied the tactical display in his destroyer's command center. His ship, the UES Ghostwalker, had been hunting Kethvar forces for 3 weeks now. What he saw on the screen made him smile. "Distance to the asteroid field," he asked his navigator. 2 million kilometers, Captain. The enemy fleet is moving directly toward it." "Perfect." The Kethvar had learned to fear direct confrontations with human ships, so they were trying to use the asteroids as cover. They thought the rocky debris would protect them from human weapons. They were about to learn another lesson about fighting humans. "Target the large asteroids with gravitational pulses," Seung-ho ordered. "Low power, just enough to change their trajectories." His weapons officer looked confused. "Sir, that won't damage the enemy ships. It's not supposed to damage them directly. Trust me." The Ghostwalker fired a series of low-powered gravitational bursts at the largest asteroids in the field. The rocks shifted slightly in their orbits, nothing dramatic. The Kethvar fleet continued moving through the field, their commanders probably thinking the humans had missed their targets. 5 minutes later, the changed asteroid paths created a cascade effect. Rocks that should have passed safely by each other instead collided at tremendous speeds. The collisions created clouds of high-speed debris that tore through the Kethvar ships like bullets through paper. An entire enemy battle group was destroyed without the human ship firing a single direct shot. "How did you know that would work?" asked the weapons officer. Seung-ho shrugged.
"Humans have been fighting in difficult terrain for thousands of years.
"We learned a long time ago that sometimes the environment can be your best weapon." Dr. Haiwan studied the psychological reports coming in from all over the galaxy. As Earth's leading expert on alien military psychology, she had predicted this moment years ago. The HFY military doctrine is completely breaking down, she explained to the assembled Earth command staff. They're a species that achieve dominance through overwhelming technological superiority. When they encounter an enemy they can't simply smash through, they don't know how to adapt. Defense Minister Yoonji leaned forward in her chair. Explain. Think about it, Hyewan said. For centuries, the HFY have fought the same way. They show up with bigger ships and more powerful weapons than their enemies. Then they win through brute force. It worked against every species they encountered because those species fought the same way. Big fleets meeting in open space, trading shots until one side breaks. But humans don't fight that way. Exactly. We use stealth, deception, tactics that turn the enemy's strength against them. The HFY have no protocols for dealing with enemies who refuse to fight fair. Their entire command structure is built around the idea that bigger equals better. On the main display, reports continued to flow in from human forces throughout the galaxy. The pattern was always the same. HFY forces would attempt their traditional tactics, only to find human ships appearing from nowhere to strike at their weaknesses. Sir, called out Communications Officer Min-jae, we're receiving a transmission from the Council Worlds. They're requesting a formal meeting with Earth leadership. Yoonji almost laughed. 6 months ago, these same aliens had dismissed humanity as primitive children. Now they wanted to talk. Tell them we'll consider it after we finish cleaning up their mess, she replied. The cleaning up was going faster than anyone had expected. Human forces had developed a simple but effective strategy for dealing with HFY fleets. Don't fight them where they're strong. Fight them where they're weak. Commander Young-ho demonstrated this principle when his squadron encountered a massive HFY fortress ship. The enemy vessel was the size of a small moon, covered in enough weapons to level a planet. Any direct assault would be suicide. So Young-ho didn't assault it directly. Instead, his ships targeted the fortress's supply convoys. Within 2 weeks, the massive vessel was running out of ammunition, fuel, and food for its crew. When the fortress finally tried to retreat to a supply base, Young-ho's forces were waiting in ambush. The largest ship in the HFY fleet surrendered without firing a shot. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Human commanders had studied their enemies for months, learning their weaknesses and habits. The HFY were powerful, but they were predictable. They followed the same patterns, used the same tactics, made the same mistakes over and over. Humans, on the other hand, had spent their entire history fighting enemies who learned and adapted. Every war on Earth had forced military leaders to develop new strategies, new technologies, new ways of thinking about combat. The result was a military force that could adapt to any situation, use any environment to their advantage, and turn any enemy strength into a weakness. Admiral Hyun-soo stood in the main command center deep beneath Earth's surface, watching reports flow in from across the galaxy. The war was ending faster than anyone had dared hope. Status of HFY forces? He asked. 93% of their known fleet destroyed or captured, replied his aide. The remainder appear to be retreating toward the Galactic Rim. Any signs of regrouping? Negative, sir. Our intelligence suggests their command structure has collapsed. They're not retreating in formation, they're just running. Hyun-soo nodded. It was over. The galaxy-spanning empire that had terrorized hundreds of worlds was finished, and it had taken humanity less than 6 months to accomplish what the entire Galactic Council couldn't do in 3 years of fighting. Sir, called out another officer, we have Ambassador Young-soo requesting permission to contact the Council formally. Granted. It's time to introduce ourselves properly. As the human fleet consolidated its victories across the galaxy, a new reality was settling in. The species that the aliens had dismissed as harmless primitives had just proven themselves to be the most effective military force in known space. The Quiet Watchers had revealed themselves to be apex predators, and now the galaxy would have to learn to live with that knowledge. The thunder of human warships had shattered more than just enemy fleets. It had shattered every assumption the galaxy had made about strength, about civilization, and about the quiet species from Sol who had been listening to everything from the shadows. The war was ending, but humanity's real work was just beginning. 6 months after the Battle of Talon Prime, the galaxy was learning to live in a universe where humans were no longer silent. General Kite walked through the corridors of New Geneva Station, the massive orbital facility that had become the headquarters for human operations in the Centauri system. Through the viewport windows, he could see ships from dozens of alien species docked at the station's ports. They had come seeking protection under Earth's military umbrella. "Status report on the protection zones?" he asked his aide, Colonel Sang-woo. 43 systems now under human protection, sir. We have patrol fleets in each sector and rapid response teams ready to deploy within 6 hours of any distress call. Kite nodded. The human protection zones had been his idea, a way to extend Earth's military doctrine across the galaxy. Instead of trying to occupy conquered territory like traditional empires, humans offered protection to peaceful species while maintaining strategic military positions throughout space. It was working better than anyone had expected. Any resistance from former council species? Some. The Nexari are still complaining that we disrupted the natural order of galactic politics, but they're not doing anything about it except talking. The Nexari had learned the hard way that talking was all they could safely do. 3 months ago, a group of their crystal ships had tried to reclaim their rightful position by attacking a human patrol. The engagement lasted exactly 11 minutes before the Nexari vessels were reduced to glittering debris floating in space. Director Namwoo sat in his office in the Galactic Intelligence Division, reading through the latest intercepts of alien communications. What he found there was both amusing and concerning. The galaxy was struggling to understand what humanity represented. Some species were terrified, convinced that humans were the next galactic conquerors who would enslave or destroy everyone else. Others were grateful for protection from threats like the Kethvar. A few were angry that their previous positions of power had been completely overturned, but all of them were trying to figure out what humans wanted. "Sir," called his assistant, Lieutenant Haewon, "we have another delegation requesting an audience with Earth leadership. The Velkoth hive mind wants to negotiate a formal alliance." Namwoo almost smiled. The same insectoid species that had considered humans too primitive to notice now wanted to be their allies. "Put them on the waiting list with the others," he replied. The waiting list was getting very long. Admiral Sora commanded the defense of the Kepler sector from her flagship, the UES Thunderbolt. Her ships patrolled a region of space that contained 17 different species, most of whom had been mortal enemies for centuries before humans arrived. Now they were all living peacefully under human protection, mainly because they were too afraid to fight each other. "Ma'am, we're receiving a distress call from the Rigel system," reported her communications officer. "Details? Unknown raiders attacking mining facilities. The locals are requesting immediate assistance." Sora considered the situation. Rigel was on the edge of human-protected space, and sending ships there would mean pulling them away from other patrol duties. But that was exactly the kind of rapid response that made the protection zones work. "Dispatch the 3rd Squadron. Full stealth approach. I want to know who these raiders are before we engage them." 2 hours later, her ships reported back. The raiders were remnants of the Kethvar fleet, desperate enough to attack defenseless mining stations for supplies. "Eliminate them," Sora ordered. The engagement was over in minutes. The surviving Kethvar ships scattered, carrying word that even the outer edges of human space were protected by invisible guardians who struck without warning. President Dong-hyun stood at the podium in the Great Assembly Hall of New Geneva Station, looking out at representatives from hundreds of worlds. The reformed Galactic Council was nothing like its predecessor. Instead of being dominated by a few major powers, it was now a form where even the smallest species could have their voices heard. Under human protection, of course. "The question before us today," he said, "is not who will rule the galaxy. Humans have no interest in ruling anyone. The question is how we will work together to make sure what happened with the Kethvar never happens again." A Nexari representative stood up, their crystalline form gleaming under the station's lights. "With respect, President Dong-hyun, how can we trust that humanity will not use its military superiority to impose its will on the rest of us?" Dong-hyun had expected this question. "Because we've already had that opportunity and we chose not to take it. When we revealed our fleet 6 months ago, we could have conquered the galaxy just as easily as we liberated it. Instead, we chose to offer protection to those who wanted it and leave the others alone." "And if we don't want your protection?" asked a Velkoth representative. "Then you're free to refuse it," Dong-hyun replied. "But you're also free to face any future threats on your own." The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The galaxy had seen what happened to species that faced existential threats without human protection. The HFY had almost succeeded in exterminating galactic civilization, and they had been stopped only by the intervention of the species everyone thought was too primitive to matter. Captain Yu Jin stood on the bridge of the UES Final Thunder, the newest and most powerful ship in Earth's fleet. Her vessel patrolled the galactic rim, watching for threats that might emerge from the unknown regions beyond civilized space. It was lonely work, but essential. The galaxy had learned that there were things in the darkness between stars that were worse than anything they had imagined. The HFY had been just one example. "Any signs of activity in the outer systems?" she asked her sensor officer. "Negative, Captain. All quiet on the frontier." Yujin nodded, but she remained alert. Humanity had taken on the responsibility of protecting galactic civilization, and that meant being ready for whatever might come next. The universe was a dangerous place, full of species and forces that viewed intelligent life as either a threat to be eliminated or a resource to be consumed. But it was also full of beauty, diversity, and potential that was worth protecting. The Final Thunder continued its patrol, a silent guardian watching over the galaxy's edge. Behind it, hundreds of human ships maintained their own patrols throughout civilized space, ensuring that the peace humanity had won would be preserved. The species that had once hidden in the shadows now stood as the galaxy's protectors. They had proven that sometimes the quietest predator was the most dangerous, and that underestimating primitive children with chemical rockets was a mistake that entire civilizations might not survive. The galaxy had expected humanity's silence and received the thunder of warships instead. Now that same thunder served as a constant reminder that there were guardians watching from the darkness, ready to strike at any threat to the peaceful worlds they protected. The quiet species had found their voice, and the universe would never be the same. In the depths of space, far from any inhabited world, a human patrol ship detected strange energy readings from the galactic rim. Something was out there, something new and potentially dangerous. The ship's captain immediately transmitted a warning to Earth Command and began preparing for combat. The galaxy might be at peace for now, but humanity remained vigilant. They had learned that the price of survival was eternal watchfulness, and they were willing to pay that price to protect the civilizations that had once dismissed them. The thunder of human warships would continue to echo through the void, a promise to friends and a warning to enemies. The silent watchers had become the galaxy's guardians, and they would not allow the peace they had won to be broken, not while a single human ship still sailed the stars.